Okay, so this is the pork that's been resting in the brine. I've kept the bones here. These are the chine bones, as you can probably see. Those are going to make awesome soup bones. I like split pea soup, and it would also probably make a really good flavoring for stews or for some kind of a chili, something like that, pork and beans. So I'm going to smoke these bones as well, along with the meat. The brine is a mixture of salt water, so it's brine. It also has some brown sugar in it, a little bit of vinegar. I used a little bit of pickle juice out of a pickle jar that was just had been finished, and I save those pickle juices all the time for this kind of deal. And a little bit of garlic powder, and that's about it. And this is a rack I took out of the oven because I wanted to do it all here in one spot where we could all see it easily, instead of spreading it out all over the place. So I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to rinse them quickly in the sink, and then I'm going to pat them dry, and then set them out on the rack here to air dry for approximately an hour until a pellicle forms. And you'll know that pellicle has formed because it will have a sort of a dryish glazed, satin glaze looking to it. You don't want it completely dried out. You want it some slight moisture left to it because you want the smoke to adhere to it and penetrate. But if it's too wet, it gets just like a wet, thick, gooey smoke on it, and it's just bitter and not very nice. I rinse it like this just to get any loose, anything that's on there. The brine, you know, it sort of, I left a lot of meat on there because I like to be able to carve that off after it's smoked and cooked, and add it into the soup or whatever I'm making. So, and this is just straight meat, and this will go into the smoker. Now I'm going to cold smoke this, so I'm not making any attempt to preserve it. It's strictly going to be cold smoked, and only for, I'll cut that open, I might get some cracklings out of that eventually, but the cold smoking is strictly for flavor. It will give some additional value in preserving it, but with refrigeration today we really don't need that. I'll just keep digging it out, rinsing it off. I'd shut the camera off so you don't have to go through the whole thing, but my hands, as you can probably tell, are not exactly camera friendly at the moment. Well, I can feel the grit on there. There's a little bit of the, definitely some of the garlic adhering to that for sure. So anyways, you just go through this process real quick. And I haven't trimmed the fat off it particularly, any chunks I've taken off, but like I said, I'm just looking at this nice piece of meat. There's a little bit of bone still in there. Nothing wrong with that. Actually, you know, when you cook things with the bone in, you get usually a much deeper flavor than if you don't. This is going to sit up here for about an hour. It depends on the humidity in your house and the temperature and a whole lot of other factors, like everything. So, like I said, you want to look for that pellicle more than you want to just work on a time frame. If that pellicle has formed nicely, you know, in 35 minutes, then you're good to go. If it hasn't, you know, and it's an hour's gone by and it's still not that great, leave it a little longer. Shouldn't take more than about an hour. I like to take the paper towel and pat it dry, as I was saying, and that just kind of speeds the process up a little bit. Okay, I'll just dump this out. I don't reuse brine. You know, you got all that raw meat sitting in there, and especially when I'm smoking game meat. And I just go over it and pat it dry, and I can, it doesn't have to be fancy. If anybody else anywhere can do it, you can do it. You know, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time. We all work at things the same way exactly. The only difference between what I do and what you do and what somebody else does is that somebody has more experience than I do, or less, but you won't learn anything if you don't try it. Typical of our area here, as soon as I decide to do something like this, it begins to snow. So probably in about 10 minutes I'll be bringing the meat out. We'll just let this go first. It's the actual flavored chips. In this case, this is the mesquite. I'll soak some of them in some lukewarm water And I'll let them sit in there for maybe 20 minutes. I don't want them dripping saturated where I've got to squeeze them out and wring them out, but I want them damp so that rather than catching fire, they smoke. I don't know if you can see that there's the slightest little, almost like a glazed donut, only very, very faint. And that's what we're looking for. And that's just nicely starting to form. And I don't know if the camera's picking that up. I won't know until I've edited it, which will be long after this is over. So I dumped some charcoal in there. Not briquettes, but charcoal. And it's mesquite wood that the charcoal is made from. So that's already part of my flavor profile right there. I very, very rarely, in fact almost never, use fruit wood, apple wood, or cherry wood. It's working. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those woods. This is just the flavor profile that I prefer. I don't know, to me it seems like an Old West type flavor in the mesquite and so on. Bit of hickory mixed in just to I like that blend. Sort of a 50-50 mix more or less. I'm trying to hold the camera with one hand, and I'm also holding the tray of meat here, so I know I'm probably bouncing you around some. Okay, so that's the meat. I'm going to have to do another load with the bones anyway, so I might as well not overcrowd this. And that's how it works. So I'm going to close this, make the smoke go up into the chamber. In a very few minutes, I'm going to add these chips into it, and then the smoke will really pour out. I don't even really need to open the chimney other than for just the flow. But look at that. Oh man, I'm getting hungry just looking at that. Look at that. Look at the smoke coming out of there. Do is keep our temperature, which isn't hard out here in this temperature outside, but we want to keep it sort of under 100, and that's barely registering. Actually, it's not really registering, so it's well under 100. We're not trying to cook it, we're just trying to smoke it. And there it is, look at that, man, that's just going to be awesome. All done. Scrape some of the snow off of things. We're almost finished. But that, boy. Now that's still completely raw. As I said, we just cold smoked this. It's not cooked, just flavored, so it's still completely raw, still has to be cooked as normal. This big piece here, all these larger pieces, will be sliced up or diced up or whatever the case may be and eaten in whatever way we want. This big piece here with the bone and the meat, there's another bone here, will go into, at some point will be soup bones type thing. There's some other small pieces here without any bone in it, so those will just be cut into medallions or whatever the case is, butterflied, something. Doesn't really matter because it's all good.